Hillbilly Jim is almost 75 now, and honestly, the way he lives today is pretty sad. His wrestling career had so much potential, it could have gone so much further, but things ended much sooner than anyone expected. So, let's dive in and find out what really happened to him. Before the world knew him as Hillbilly Jim, his real name was Jim Morris, a Kentucky native who grew up with a love for wrestling and an admiration for the larger-than-life heroes he saw on TV. Like many who broke into the business during that era, Morris started small, wrestling in regional promotions, learning the ropes, and slowly building his name. But his big break came when he caught the attention of the World Wrestling Federation, a place where personalities mattered just as much as in-ring skill. When the WWF decided to bring him in, they crafted a character that was a perfect fit for his look and background. A fun-loving country boy from the backwoods, known simply as Hillbilly Jim. From the moment he stepped onto WWF television in 1984, he became an instant fan favorite. He was introduced as a loyal supporter of Hulk Hogan, appearing at ringside as one of Hogan's biggest admirers. The story went that Hogan saw something in this big-hearted fan and decided to train him personally. Fans loved every bit of it. It was the ultimate fantasy. A regular guy from the audience being trained by the biggest star in wrestling. Soon, Hillbilly Jim traded his flannel shirt and boots for wrestling gear and stepped into the ring himself. His early matches were full of energy and excitement. He wasn't the most technically skilled wrestler, but that wasn't the point. His charm, country personality, and good-natured humor made him a hit with families and kids everywhere. He danced, he smiled, and he made the crowd feel like they were part of the fun. But as beloved as the Hillbilly Jim character was, it also fell into a tradition that wrestling had relied on for years: gimmick stereotyping. The whole country boy image, with overalls, banjo music, and simple-minded innocence, played heavily into Southern stereotypes. The WWF even expanded on it by creating a whole hillbilly family, including Uncle Elmer, Cousin Junior, and Cousin Luke. They all danced, grinned, and spoke in thick country accents. While it was all meant to be lighthearted entertainment, sometimes the jokes went too far. Commentators and heel characters like Rowdy Roddy Piper often mocked them on air, portraying them as clueless or laughable. Still, Hillbilly Jim himself was different. He came across as honorable, kind, and humble. He wasn't just a punchline. He was someone the fans genuinely respected. That's what made his character work. He had heart. You could see it in the way he carried himself, always smiling, always giving off that good-natured vibe that made people cheer for him no matter what. Hillbilly Jim's popularity reached its peak in the mid to late 80s. He shared the ring with some of the biggest stars of the era, from teaming up with Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant to squaring off against villains like King Kong Bundy and Big John Studd. He was often used in tag team and special attraction matches rather than main event storylines, but that was part of his charm. He wasn't chasing titles or fame. He was there to have fun and entertain the crowd. One of his most memorable moments came during his feud with the heel stable, the Fabulous Moolah and her crew, where he and his hillbilly family stood up for their own kind in classic underdog fashion. It was simple, wholesome storytelling. Good country folks versus loud, arrogant villains, and the fans ate it up. Hillbilly Jim also appeared in some of the WWF's most colorful events, including the early WrestleManias, where he brought his signature energy and humor to the big stage. But just when it seemed like his momentum was growing, a setback changed everything. During a match early in his WWF run, Hillbilly Jim suffered a serious leg injury. It was bad enough to put him on the shelf for months. While recovering, he didn't disappear. He stayed on television as a manager and cheerleader for his hillbilly cousins. The fans stayed loyal, but the injury slowed down what could have been a much stronger in-ring career. By the time he returned, the wrestling world was changing fast, and new stars were starting to take over the spotlight. Still, Hillbilly Jim continued to make appearances through the late 80s. He became part of several fun, family-friendly segments that kept his character alive. Whether it was dancing with the crowd, taking part in comedy sketches, or teaming with other fan favorites, he stayed relevant in his own unique way. But behind all the smiles and lightheartedness, it was clear that his character had limits. As wrestling became more serious and edgy heading into the early 90s, the hillbilly gimmick felt increasingly out of place. Despite that, Hillbilly Jim handled it all with grace. He never turned bitter or resentful about being typecast. In interviews, he often spoke proudly of the fans who loved him, emphasizing that he always tried to give them something positive. To him, the Hillbilly Jim character wasn't about mocking anyone. It was about representing a kind, hard-working, good-hearted man who stood up for what was right. Over time, he transitioned into more of a supporting role in the company. He appeared on WWF's Primetime Wrestling, hosted fan events, and even worked behind the scenes. His charisma and kindness made him a natural for interacting with audiences, whether it was at live shows or meet and greets. He also found a new outlet when he started hosting WWF Coliseum home video segments, where he introduced classic matches with his own down-to-earth humor. It was a fun gig that let him stay connected to fans without the physical demands of wrestling. Hillbilly Jim might not have held championships or main-evented pay-per-views, but he built a legacy that lasted. He was part of an era that defined the WWF's family entertainment years, an era of colorful characters, larger-than-life personas, and feel-good stories. And even if his gimmick was based on a stereotype, he managed to rise above it by showing heart, humility, and respect for the audience. By 1990 or 1991, Morris made the tough decision to retire from full-time in-ring competition. It wasn't because he stopped loving the business, far from it. He had spent years entertaining millions, but he realized something important. He didn't want to be one of those wrestlers who kept going long after their bodies had given out. He once mentioned that he never wanted to wrestle past the age of 40, and by the early 90s, that time was getting closer. More importantly, he had already gone through neck surgery, which made him think carefully about his future. Wrestling was in his blood, but life after wrestling was something he couldn't ignore anymore. The surgery, from all accounts, played a big role in his decision to step away. Injuries are a part of wrestling that fans don't always see up close. Behind all the cheers and bright lights are nights filled with pain, swelling, and the kind of exhaustion only wrestlers understand. For Hillbilly Jim, who had already dealt with a major leg injury early in his WWF run, another serious medical issue was a clear sign. His body had given enough. So, he walked away while he could still move around and enjoy life beyond the ring. But walking away from wrestling doesn't mean it walks away from you. Even after retiring from full-time competition, Hillbilly Jim stayed close to the business. He appeared at fan conventions, nostalgia events, and even popped up on WWE programming from time to time. He remained a beloved figure among fans who grew up watching him dance around in overalls and smile ear to ear. And honestly, that's what made people love him even more. He never changed. Fame never got to his head, and he always carried himself like the humble country guy from Kentucky who just happened to become a star. After stepping away from the spotlight, Jim Morris explored other passions. He got involved in music, something he'd always loved, and even started hosting his own radio show called Hillbilly Jim's Moonshine Matinee on SiriusXM's Outlaw Country channel. The show became a big hit among country music fans, where he played classic Southern tunes and shared stories from his wrestling days. It was the perfect blend of who he was, part entertainer, part storyteller, and completely himself. He showed that you didn't need to be in a wrestling ring to entertain people. His personality alone could do that. Still, as time passed, it became clear that life outside wrestling wasn't always easy. Like many from his generation, Hillbilly Jim didn't have the kind of financial security modern wrestlers have today. Back in the 1980s, even though he was part of one of the most popular rosters in history, wrestlers didn't get long-term contracts or benefits. Once you stopped performing, the money stopped coming in. That reality hit many wrestlers from his era hard, and Jim was no exception. While he never complained publicly or sought pity, it's something that fans often point to when they talk about his later years, that a man who gave so much to the business didn't get nearly enough back. Behind that smile, there's a bit of sadness when you look at how things turned out. Hillbilly Jim's career could have gone so much further if not for those injuries and the timing of his debut. If he had started younger or stayed healthier, there's no doubt he could have been a bigger name in wrestling history. He had the charisma, the look, and the connection with fans that you just can't teach. Unfortunately, the combination of physical setbacks and being boxed into a gimmick limited how far he could go. Once the Hillbilly act ran its course, there wasn't much room left for him to grow as a character in the company. That's all for today's video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss an update. We'll see you again soon.